elevates your career, our payroll leadership professional designation. So we just recently did what we call an open house on the payroll compliance professional designation a few short weeks ago. And now it's time to focus our attention on the payroll leadership professional designation, or the PLP. I'm pleased to have with me our Manager of Professional Accreditation, Chris Pacella. Chris.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. And Chris is going to be working with me to make sure that we address all of your questions as we go through some of the information about our payroll leadership professional designation. We also have from our public relations team, Jamie Finley, and we also have from our professional accreditation team, Karen, who's going to be assisting us with sort of the behind the scenes things. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Stephen Van Alstyne. I am the Vice President of Professional Standards and Education at the National Payroll Institute, and I'm also a longtime holder of the PLP, Payroll Leadership Professional Designation. So we're going to be spending some time talking about this next level designation. For many of you, I know you have the PCP designation. So we want to talk a little bit about why you might consider the PLP. Is it the right designation for you? Is it the right move for you? You might be aware that the designation used to be called the CPM, and some of you might have started embarking on the path towards the PLP when it used to be the CPM, the Certified Payroll Manager. But we went through a rebranding a couple of years ago, really, which reflected sort of the direction that roles of this nature were taking within professions. And we felt there was much more of a necessity to focus on leadership because this isn't just about managing a payroll department. It's about leading the payroll responsibility within an organization. And that can take a lot of different directions in an organization. For example, we have great relationships with our payroll service providers who are an important part of the stakeholder relations when you talk about payroll administration. And not everybody in a payroll service provider environment is managing payrolls, but there's certainly an important part of the leadership related to payroll. So we felt it was important to reframe the designation. We're going to talk about the components of the designation as it exists today, but we're also doing a lot of strategic work. We've just recently completed our competency framework. And in doing that exercise, we recognize that we probably need to take a look at the payroll leadership professional designation. Now, that being said, there won't be a lot of substantive changes to the program, and anybody that starts down the path of the program will be eligible to complete the existing program. But we are going to be making some augmentations and enhancements to the program, again, to focus a little bit more on that leadership aspect and what that means, and putting that payroll lens on it. So I think it's an exciting time for exploring, moving, or elevating your career within payroll. And some of you might be in those leadership roles and you just feel it's time to actually put those important letters behind your name. So we're going to encourage you to ask questions if anything comes up. Chris is going to be periodically chiming in so that we can make sure that you get all of that necessary information with regard to the designations. You can always reach out to our team, to our payroll accreditation team, to the folks in our credentialing and professional standards area of the organization. And we're happy to answer and fill in any of those gaps so that you make sure you're making informed decisions about the next steps that you take with your payroll education and designations. So we're going to talk about what is the payroll leadership professional designation, why you might want to consider going from that PCP to the PLP, the challenges of the PLP, and again, part of what we've been doing in exploring a roadmap for our professional development and education programs at the Institute is to support our learners and our professionals to give them what they need to make those transitions. So again, it is a leap to go from the PCP to the PLP because the PCP is really the that foundational knowledge that you need, and then elevating that to the leadership component, which again, we're going to talk about. The rewards that are involved with the PLP. We obviously consistently see fairly significant increases in salary when you move from the PCP to the PLP, because those often come with much more responsibility and roles that individuals decide to embark on within payroll and those more leadership related roles. The path that you take to the PLP designation, I mean, it's one thing to be able to look on our website and see what the requirements are, but it's another thing to be able to talk about them and talk about why we feel that path is important in obtaining the PLP and how you might get started. Again, many of you we noticed who have registered for the session are payroll compliance professional designation holders. And this is obviously a transition to a higher level designation. And we're going to talk about the numbers, how many designation holders we have and what percentage of those designation holders are PLPs and why there is that variability in the number of PLPs versus PCPs, because it's not, I've often said it's not just an automatic transition. You get the PCP and then you automatically move to that next step. We want to make sure that the information we provide you with today is going to help you make informed decisions about moving on to this next level and what that might entail. So what is the payroll leadership professional? I've framed a little bit about what it is. The biggest difference, I think, between the PCP and the PLP is that it requires more courses to complete, and 5 courses, many of which are at university, what we would qualify as university level. Now, mind you, you can take some of these courses at any post-secondary institution as long as it meets our learning objectives. But oftentimes when you look at sort of specifically with regard to the courses that we offer through the Institute, specifically the payroll-related courses, these are really university level content. They talk about things like project management, decision-making, strategic thinking, often courses that are more associated at a university level. So they are, oftentimes positioned at that level. So it is a challenging program. It's a very different dynamic than what you would experience with the PCP, as I had mentioned. So you learn about not just payroll specifically, but you learn about all of the stakeholders that are involved in the payroll operation. So that includes accounting, human resources, and other business operations. With respect to these designations and the competency framework that I spoke about earlier, one of the competencies is partnering strategically with business. We feel that that's an important competency that payroll professionals need to be effectively operating within the payroll space. And obviously there is that strategic relationship building that you have with some of those other important departments like accounting, finance, human resources, and in some cases, IT. Many of you might have had those experiences in working with some of those departments and know how important forming those important relationships are. So again, that last bullet, just emphasizing that it is a challenging designation. I know I wouldn't say that the PCP, that means the PCP designation isn't challenging, but this one is certainly very different from the perspective of the learning that you have, some of the outputs that you produce, the group work that's involved. And I'm going to share with you some of those, some of the experiences that we have at the National Payroll Institute that we've seen with individuals who've gone from the PCP to the PLP, and how we can help you anticipate what you're going to be experiencing, what we've seen, and why we have things like group activities. I know we get a lot of feedback from our learners saying, I'm in a group that's challenging. I've got somebody that's either not pulling their weight or somebody that's very bossy. Well, guess what happens when we're at work? I'm sure you experience those exact same personalities at work. And that's exactly again, we're not hoping that people find these challenges, but when you face them, you're never going to know when you're going to face them. So facing them in an educational experience when you're learning and growing within a leadership role, I think is part of the experience. And so sometimes it is beneficial to have those experiences, even though that may not seem beneficial when you're experiencing it at the time. So why would you go from the PCP to the PLP? Obviously, there's the opportunity for you to advance within your career. And if you're here today, you've completed the PLP, but you may want to take things to that next level with your career, and this certainly affords that opportunity, and especially in larger organizations. So when you look to organizations that are much larger in size, there's obviously going to be that opportunity to have more of a tiered or layered approach to how the payroll department is often configured. So you might have a payroll director, payroll managers, with different aspects depending on the size of the organization, from time and attendance to legislative compliance, to certain aspects of workers' compensation administration. I worked for a very large organization when I first came to payroll, the Canada Post Corporation, and we had many different aspects to payroll. We actually had somebody that was specifically responsible for requirements to pay and garnishments and family maintenance orders. So that was one specific role that had a structure within our organization. So we had somebody that led that area of the organization. So there's, in larger organizations, there's especially the opportunity to advance your career. We've already mentioned that it does pay for itself. PLP holders oftentimes make, and in some cases, considerably more remuneration than a PCP, oftentimes because they're holding more responsibility in the roles that they hold. It gives you more knowledge about important aspects of payroll, business, accounting, and human resources. And it sets you apart, obviously, from other job candidates. So if you were, for example, applying for a role that was in a more leadership, had a more of a leadership orientation, whether that be supervising a team of payroll professionals or managing a group of payroll professionals, obviously the PLP is going to set you apart from somebody that might just have their payroll compliance professional designation. So, that would just stand to reason. So let's take a look at the numbers, our organization by numbers. So we represent over 40,000 payroll professionals. We're an organization that has, different types of memberships, whether that be organizational, professional, or candidates who are actually on the path to getting their designation. But when you take all of those into consideration, we have close to 43,000 individuals that sit on rosters or are actual members of our organization. Of those, 17,000 are designation holders, and all 17,000 plus hold the payroll compliance professional designation. Because the PCP, as you know, or I'm telling you, is the first and required step to getting the PLP. So that means that everybody who holds our either PCP or PLP obviously have to have the PCP. So all 17,000 are PCP designation holders. Of those 17,000, there's close to 4,000 that are payroll leadership professionals. And 200 of those were new in 2023. So obviously of our graduates, we're not graduating as many PLPs. That stands to reason, again, because of the, more specialization, I think, that is involved with that designation. But in terms of talking about why there is that gap, why those additional 14,000 people would not want to consider or want to get their PLP, in Canada, we have a configuration of organizations that are very heavily weighted on the small to medium-sized enterprise. So in many of those organizations, people might be doing payroll part of the time, or there might only be one payroll professional. So it wouldn't be necessarily necessary to hold a leadership type of designation in that capacity. But I think what we're finding is, and that's part of the reason why we rebranded the designation, that despite the fact that you might not be leading people in the payroll role, there's certainly a leadership component to the role that payroll plays within the organization. One of our important public relations messages is that payroll is at the heart of business. Payroll plays a very critical role in making sure that employees are paid. And obviously, that's the reason why employees come to work. They come to work to be paid. They have an expectation of being paid accurately and on time. So this is why one of the competencies of our organization for payroll professionals is to strategically partner with business. So we're anticipating to grow that payroll leadership professional designation because of that, because I'm sure many of you are aware with advancements in technology, with artificial intelligence, that the role of payroll is changing, it is shifting. So we need to be prepared for that shift and that change. And I think, taking more of a leadership role within the organization is going to be going hand in hand with that. It just takes things to that next level, looking at things like data analytics, how we can use data to strategically influence or assist in strategic decisions that organizations make that come from payroll and payroll information, looking at key performance indicators. So for example, we've seen large organizations that have spent a lot of their efforts in reducing manual payments or reducing errors that happen on a pay period by pay period basis. So that can be accomplished certainly through some of these other avenues, I think, that really are important in sort of shining a light on payroll and the role that it plays in organizations. So Chris, have there been any questions that have popped up since we've been chatting here?
There have been. We've got some great.
Excellent.
Yeah. So Lady Lee would like to know, if I wanted to advance to PLP, does that mean I no longer hold the PCP designation?
That's a great question, because I said that all 17,000 of our designation holders are PCPs. And, I stand on that comment that everybody who is or who moves to the PLP, you're always going to have that PCP, or you're going to potentially be on the path to that PLP. But once you hold the PLP, that is your designation. So you'll notice that, for example, when my title slide came up, I had PLP behind my name. Now I have the PCP, but I think it's inferred that I have the PCP. I do actually come across individuals that do utilize the PCP and PLP. And we're not going to certainly object to anybody doing that. But once you move to the PLP, it's inferred that you have the PCP. So it's not necessary to list it as a designation that you hold. Although, again, we wouldn't object to anybody doing that.
It's the same kind of idea as if you have a Bachelor of Commerce and then you get your MBA, you can continue to list your Bachelor of Commerce, but typically people just list their MBA.
Yeah, because usually the BCom is the requirement for the MBA.
Exactly.
Yeah, good analogy, Chris.
For sure. I have a couple more questions, but they are about transfer credits. We always have a ton of questions about transfer credits. So I'm going to wait until you get to that slide and we'll go forward with those then.
Perfect. Yeah. So just because we're not addressing your question now doesn't mean that we don't have it. And because Chris is obviously familiar with the presentation, as am I. So we are going to be getting to a lot of these different topics. So we're just going to kind of stagger those to that point. So let's look at the actual course requirements for the PLP. Now, as I said, we're looking at changing the configuration of the course, and I'm not recommending that you necessarily hold off proceeding with the program, because we are going to have obviously transition programs that are going to be in place for those that move from the current PLP to a potential future one, and we don't know how long that's going to take. We've just got actually a report from the University of Toronto, who we partnered with to evaluate our competency framework and look at all of our programs and make some recommendations. So we're just sorting through that and deciding how that's going to impact. I think the bottom line is, though, that there is that foundational payroll knowledge that's going to be required and is going to continue to exist. Right now, that is resident in 2 courses that we have at the National Payroll Institute that are called Introduction to Payroll Management and Applied Payroll Management. And then what we call transfer of credit courses. And Chris just mentioned that we had a couple of questions about those courses, which we'll get to. But those 3 business courses are managerial accounting. And as you know from taking your PCP, there is an introduction to accounting course that is required for the PCP. And that gives you kind of the foundational accounting principles around debits and credits and general ledger reconciliations and the kinds of roles that payroll plays within accounting. So that's an important knowledge piece. The managerial accounting course really focuses on, things like budgeting, again, using data to make important decisions or being able to make recommendations to leadership based on information that we house in payroll. And of course, we house a lot of important labor-related information, whether that be overtime, payments to overtime that are taking place, terminations, costs that are associated with terminations and hiring. And again, leadership really values that information for making business informed decisions. Organizational behavior, and compensation and benefits management. So these are obviously, and if you look at the learning objectives of these courses, there's a lot of important learning in these courses that really kind of crosses over into the payroll leadership realm, and that's why they're required. And again, we're going to be assessing all of that and determining if we're going to fold some of that information into our own curriculum, or whether we're going to continue to have those courses as required courses. And I will tell you that I can almost guarantee you that managerial accounting is going to continue to be a required course. What we found in evaluating some of our own Introduction to Payroll Management and Applied Payroll Management curriculum is there is some duplication with organizational behavior curriculum. So these are why we're, sort of making decisions around whether or not we're going to continue to make that a specific required transfer of credit course, or whether we can buffer up our existing courses and put more of a payroll lens on them, thereby not needing to have the organizational behavior course. So if I could make a recommendation, if anybody's considering and anybody's looking at what courses they want to take as a transfer of credit course, I would probably focus on the managerial accounting and comp and ben courses before I would concentrate on the org behavior courses. And some of you might have that org behavior course. I know a lot of business programs, both at a college and university level, have organizational behavior courses. I certainly had that when I was doing my undergraduate work. And those courses are very valuable courses. But again, some of that course content is covered in Introduction to Payroll and Applied Payroll Management. Some of the curriculum within Intro and Applied Payroll Management includes, again, things like decision-making, project management, employee development, the common things that you see associated with managerial leadership type of roles within organizations. And we always put the focus or the case focus on payroll in that curriculum.
Okay, before
Chris,
you move,
before I
my
get into the
goodness,
next slide, let me back up then and let's talk a little bit about those
people want to
transfer.
know. They are very, very excited about
Eager
the
to know.
eager to know. They're looking for the knowledge. Okay, so the first question is from Kim, and it's about the managerial accounting course being difficult to find without having to take an entire program. And finding many institutions do not offer it as a standalone course or require a prerequisite in order to take it. Do we have any suggestions? Yes, we absolutely do. So there's a lot of like continuing education campuses, for lack of a better term, at various colleges and universities. And that's really where you want to be concentrating on. So Athabasca University, Thompson Rivers University, Toronto Metropolitan University, formerly Ryerson, University of Toronto, McMaster University, Seneca College, Sheridan College, Humber College, George Brown College. They're all going to have some form of a either school of continuing studies or continuing education offering for the majority of these courses. The one that can be difficult to find is the compensation and benefits
Yes.
management course. There is one that qualifies at Athabasca University. And I think there's a couple others out there, but I know that the professional accreditation team often steers people towards that Athabasca course if they haven't covered it in part of their former studies.
Yeah, I
Uh,
will say, Chris, that you kind of hit on it. You're talking about some of those institutions that are well-known online institutions that since the pandemic, many continuing studies programs at universities and colleges have gone virtual. So I think what that has done is it's opened up the opportunity to be able to have more options with which to take these specific 3 courses, like the accounting, org behavior, and comp and benefits course. So even, Chris is absolutely right. The comp and ben course is a more challenging one to find. But since the pandemic, because of the capacity to continuing studies going online, we've seen a lot more opportunity for students. And particularly if depending on the time zone you're in, if you're willing to take a course, you could be in Vancouver and you could take a course. Chris mentioned George Brown, I think College was one that you mentioned, Chris. You could take a course with George Brown College as long as the time difference worked for you. There's no inhibitors there with the exception of a time zone change. So
Excellent. Ray also mentioned that Nate out in Edmonton offers a managerial accounting course online, which is
yeah. I did my managerial accounting course, some time ago, but I took it actually with Seneca College here in Toronto. And the reason I did was because at the time, and this, again, consider this was a number of years ago, at the time, it was one of the only schools that offered the program virtually, or it was online. It was basically an asynchronous learning experience. So what we had to do was cover chapters or curriculum and submit assignments on a weekly basis over a 13-week course, which most post-secondary courses are 13, 14 weeks in length. We had to submit that assignment. So that was a weekly obligation. So that supported your learning. And then we had to go to an exam writing center to do the final exam. Now, I think with e-proctoring and advances that have been made within e-proctoring, the necessity to actually go to an exam writing center is reducing. We've certainly seen it reducing. We offer all of our courses in an e-proctored environment, a very effective e-proctoring environment. So it, again, provides a lot of flexibility.
excellent. I got a good one. Do you recommend taking the payroll courses of the PLP program or the business courses first? Which order will be the most beneficial?
Yeah, that is a very good question. And I'm going to say because the content is I don't want to call it unique, because I've already said that some of the organizational behavior topics are kind of embedded within the introduction to a payroll management and applied payroll management. But I would say you could, obviously you have to take intro to payroll management before the applied payroll management. But I would say the other business courses can be taken really in any order. Some people, as I say, may already have those. So for them, the only option is you're going to take the intro to payroll management and applied payroll management. If I could make one suggestion for anybody pursuing the designation right now, it would be to take the org behavior course first, because some of that content is within intro and applied payroll management, but with the payroll lens. So if you've already taken that course, it gives you some foundational knowledge. So it makes it, you can see it, being applied more directly when you take the intro and applied payroll management courses second. It's not necessary, but I think it just gives you a better learning opportunity there. Otherwise, I don't think there's really any benefit to taking managerial accounting before you take the intro or applied payroll management courses, or the comp and benefits before or after. Really, they are kind of standalone curriculum. So there's no necessity except for the prerequisite that we've got, that intro come before the applied payroll management.
Nicely said, Stephen. Lots and lots of questions about, I took this course, will this qualify? I took this diploma or degree, will that qualify? We have a resource available on the NPI website, and it's a database of all of the Canadian courses from colleges and universities, which have been previously reviewed and accepted. So this is a great resource if you want to check if the course that you've taken has already been accepted, is pre-approved, or if you're looking to take a course, it will list those courses that are out there and are available. Alternatively, you can always send in an email or give us a call. So the email is accreditation@payroll.ca, and the team will be happy to let you know if your course qualifies, direct you to the database, and give you the information that you need.
Perfect. We're ready to proceed.
I'll
Chris?
let you move on for a while. There's lots of
Okay.
questions, but yeah,
We'll do a little more presenting, and then we'll take some more questions.
Excellent.
So the challenges of the PLP designation. So we've talked a lot about the required curriculum, and it's obviously listed. That is, one of what you could say is a perceived challenge. There are 5 courses that are required to be completed for the designation. There is a payroll work-related experience requirement, because again, there is an assumption when you're working on some of the group assignments, because there are group assignments that are involved with this designation. And there is, again, when you're dealing with some of these issues, there is an expectation that you would have some knowledge within payroll. Oftentimes, from just a foundational knowledge perspective, you're growing your knowledge, you're learning. So there is not the necessity for the experience comes after you've done that learning. In this designation, that requirement comes before you embark on the designation. So you already need 1 year of payroll-related work experience for the PCP. You need 2 years of related payroll work experience for the PLP. And again, we set that criteria of what is considered payroll-related work experience, because that's going to benefit you when you're taking this designation. And then again, when you ultimately obtain it, it's saying to the broader business community that individuals that have this PLP designation already have the required experience. When we, if we go years back, when we configured the designations or then the certifications, we didn't have a work-related experience requirement in either designation, but the first designation to get it was this one, because we found people were coming out with their then CPM, their certified payroll manager, and they were going out into the workforce expecting to get payroll manager jobs when they've never worked in payroll. So that just did not make any sense whatsoever. There is an expectation that individuals that would hold this designation would have experience, and that's why they would be suited to be managing a payroll role. You have to have worked in payroll in order to manage payroll quite often. So, so we felt strongly that 2 years of related payroll work experience was a necessity. So individuals have to have that before they get the opportunity to embark on the designation. And then we've got a time requirement. So all courses need to be completed within a 5-year time frame, because obviously we don't want people spreading out taking these courses over 10 or 10 plus years, because then, a lot of the requirements, curriculum have changed during that time. So we set that 5-year time requirement for individuals to complete the designation once they start that first course. But the rewards of the designation as a graduate, you're obviously going to be better positioned for top payroll role opportunities, especially some of those ones that I talked about. What's exciting for me is that, I've been in payroll for over 30 years. At the time that I was in payroll, my role was defined actually as a payroll clerk. I'm very happy to say that term payroll clerk has almost been eradicated, which is good for the profession because it's, there are certainly some data entry and more less experience required roles within payroll. There's always going to be that in any profession, but for the most part, that whole perception of transaction-driven, clerk-driven activity has been diminished just simply because of the advancements within the role. But I've seen, again, I've seen payroll directors. My wife actually works for an organization where the lead payroll role is actually a vice president. So we're certainly starting to see that happen more and more in Canada. But again, Canada proportionately has a lot more small, medium-sized enterprise versus larger, 1,000+ employee organizations. But certainly when you get into organizations of that size and scope, you do start to see those director, vice president roles with respect to payroll. So that's exciting. So you're positioned with this designation to be considered for some of those roles, to be a leader in the payroll community. And literally because it's a payroll leadership professional, it's easy to make that connection. Have the breadth of payroll knowledge that goes just beyond that foundational PCP designation knowledge. Have the confidence and expertise to lead a team or a department or an area of an organization, and be positioned to have your voice heard within the organization. That's one of the common things that I get excited when we go to designation recognition events, that I hear people saying, with these designations, when I actually provide advice or I'm asked for my position on something or I bring something forward, because I have these designations and particularly the PLP, it gives my voice, more depth, more presence, just because of the fact that the individual holds the PLP. So before we get how you get started, Chris, are there any questions that would be appropriate at this time?
Sure, absolutely. Some questions about the experience requirement. One of the viewers wanted just to confirm that the experience is an entry requirement of the PLP, and said that some of the emails that they've received seem to kind of imply that you start the courses before you complete the experience prerequisite. Very sorry if it's come across that way. If you have a communication and you're interpreting it that way, please let us know about that, because that is not our intention whatsoever. The experience requirement does need to be satisfied before you begin taking the PLP academic courses.
And there's actually an application process that people have to submit. So they're given sort of the green light based on their experience to actually start the program. So, so you can actually register for that introduction to payroll management course without that. So that is an important piece of the puzzle. So.
Absolutely. Other questions about like the type of roles that might qualify. So we've got a viewer who has been in a leadership role for over 20 years, working as a director. Is that going to be the type of role that is going to be recognized for the PLP work experience?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, again, you can reach out to our credentialing team. You can look at the sort of what the application process looks like, but I would suggest that absolutely that is the type of role and the type of experience that we would be looking at for that experience requirement.
There is a request from some of the viewers for NPI to start offering some of these transfer credits themselves, because they do find it difficult to find some of these courses. That's wonderful feedback. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm surprised that people are saying they're having difficulty finding those courses. So
Lots
again,
of comments there. Absolutely.
yeah. So again, we don't want to flood our credentialing team with questions about this. But again, Chris mentioned, like, you can go on our website. There is a repository of schools that offer different courses that we accept for transfer of credit. Go into the continuing education or continuing studies areas of most post-secondary institutions. A lot of institutions are aware of our designation. So if you approach them and say, I'm looking to take this particular designation, which courses do you have that we accept? They will oftentimes guide you. Or if you say, I'm looking for just a managerial accounting course, it doesn't have to be called managerial accounting. And I'm going to use that one as an example. Some academic institutions call it financial accounting. They call it accounting 2, or advanced accounting, or, there's various names. But again, we evaluate the learning objectives that we require. And so we accept, we've got, I would say, hazard to say, we've got hundreds of courses that we accept as a transfer of credit for managerial accounting. So again, don't be inhibited to ask some of those questions. We can assist you, or academic institutions can assist you in kind of guiding you with what you need.
So one of the viewers would like to just get some clarification about the experience requirement and kind of where it falls. So they wanted to know if they get the experience after finishing the courses of the PLP, like the PCP, or would they get the PLP designation directly? So I'll cover this one. So with
Chris, I'm just going to pull up this.
Oh, perfect.
This
That's
little.
perfect.
So you go ahead and answer the question, but this little, chart kind of is a good visual as to where you're going to see where the experience fits in.
Absolutely. So as students go through the PCP designation, they complete the courses, and then as an exit requirement, there's an experience requirement. Then for the PLP, the whole thing is reversed. So the experience is at the beginning of the program, and then you take the academic aspect of it. Now, some of the experience used towards the exit requirement of the PCP designation can overlap and actually be used as part of the experience requirement of the PLP designation, depending on what it is that you are doing. We're typically looking for that career progression. So what you were doing as experience as you were going through your PCP may be more at the practitioner level, whereas the PLP experience requirement, we're looking for more of a leadership role experience. So some of it may overlap, some of it may take a few years for you to advance your career and get into a role that's going to allow you to move into the type of responsibilities where the PLP is going to be best suited for your career.
Yeah, excellent, Chris. I think it's a good segue to talk about what is required, and you've covered that off. So we've got, again, 3 and 4 don't have to fall in that exact order, because some people may already have those 3 business courses before they take the payroll courses, or you might want to take one of the payroll courses and then a business course, and then back to a payroll course and another business course. I'll tell you what I did, and I'm not sure I would recommend it. I was taking one of the payroll courses and the managerial accounting course at the same time, and working. So I would not really recommend that. But again, everybody's built differently, so it depends on what kind of motivates you. Some people are motivated to working to get the designation as soon as they can, and certainly that's your prerogative. There's nothing you can't take, obviously, the 2 payroll courses simultaneously, but you can take the payroll course and one of the business courses simultaneously. There's nothing to stop you from doing that. It's just that, you're going to be very busy. Because we have also had students say that they have to invest more time taking the payroll courses at the leadership level than at the compliance professional level. So, and again, that comes with with experience as well. Some people who have a lot of payroll experience can more quickly go through those payroll compliance professional courses than somebody who has no experience. So it's really going to be dependent on the individual learner.
Absolutely. I've got a lot of questions about time. So, for example, can an extension be granted to completing the courses if you don't have enough time to finish within the 5-year time frame?
Chris, do you want to handle that one?
Absolutely.
Because this is a common scenario that will pop up.
So yeah, for the PLP, it's a little less common because often what takes the longest time is getting that experience requirement. And since the experience is the entry requirement, it's really about the courses coming within the 5-year time frame. So it doesn't happen as often, but life happens, things happen, and sometimes people do have difficulty completing the 5 courses within the 5 years. The getting an extension is not an issue. You just need to contact the office here, the credentialing department, and they can apply an extension within reason, typically. We're looking for individuals who are actively working towards completing the designation and who have a plan. If you know someone has completed 1 course and 5 years go by, and they still have 4 courses to go, we're probably going to have a problem with that. But if someone has been working towards it and they're like, okay, I'm going to have everything done within the next year, that's not going to be a problem. Also, lots of questions about having taken prerequisite or the transfer credit courses 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Do we still have to take it? And is there any way to get that considered?
Yeah, I mean, we make considerations and concessions for those kinds of situations. That's why we have a professional standards and credentialing area within the organization. I think in a lot of instances, we want to look to see, you know, let's say it's managerial accounting and somebody took that 20 years ago. If somebody has been actively working and demonstrating that they have utilized the knowledge within that area, within a role, then we'll absolutely accept that. But obviously, we can't say we're going to accept every situation where somebody has taken a course 30 years ago, that we're just automatically going to accept that as a transfer of credit. So we do have, obviously, we do have some structure around what we require. But as Chris said, with that 5-year time frame, we evaluate things and we'll make exceptions in certain circumstances, and the same would hold true with these courses as with the transfer of credit courses as well. We don't, you know, if you've already taken a managerial accounting course, our goal here is not to make you have to take it again if it's not necessary.
Excellent. Still lots of questions, but I'll let you continue.
Sounds good. So we're almost at the end of the actual formal side of the presentation, so we can focus then just exclusively on questions. But there are some ongoing requirements for the designation, as there is with the PCP. You have to obviously maintain a membership. That is a requirement of holding the designation. You have to adhere to the Code of Professional Conduct. Everybody signs off on that code. It's on our website, and you know, it's just a standard of any profession. And for the PLP specifically, there's a requirement to maintain 21 continuing professional education hours annually. We sort of set the prescription of what is expected of those hours. It obviously has to be new learning, has to contribute to your growth, your professional growth. It is an increase from the 14 that is required with the PCP. It's not in addition to the 14 that's required for the PCP. So it is 21. So you just, once you get the PLP, you bump from needing 14 to needing an additional 7 on an annual basis to have 21 hours. We'll just finish with some talking a little bit about the course options and then some testimonials. So you can take the course online through the National Payroll Institute. It is an asynchronous learning experience. And by asynchronous, we mean that it is self-paced. Now, there are milestones that have to be hit. So you can't just, you know, go rogue until you have to write the final exam. there are assignments that need to be completed. There are activities that have to be completed that contribute toward your mark. And those have certain due dates. So, but otherwise you have access to an instructor, but there's no requirement to come into a virtual class environment. You can do it online through post-secondary institutions. Chris, I don't think we currently have any academic institutions that offer it in the actual classroom.
That's come up a lot actually in the comments. Is there are many students, many viewers here who have been waiting for a long time to get a classroom session, particularly in the West, British Columbia and Alberta. There's typically a few more that are offered in Quebec and Ontario as opposed to out there. There is in September, there is going to be some PLP courses offered at Douglas College. So if that is available to anyone who's watching, who want to take it in a classroom setting, that would be great. We're always looking to get some of our colleges and universities in Alberta to offer the courses, but I don't believe that we have anything scheduled.
We have, I think Nate offers it, but it's an online offering, I think.
That's correct.
We do have a new relationship with Bow Valley in Calgary. But again, that's something we could, if there's enough demand for it, it's something we could certainly work with Bow Valley to offer. They're currently offering our PCP courses, so we can certainly look to potentially. So again, if any of you out there are from a specific geographic location and you want us to look to work with an academic institution to offer, please reach out to us. This does go by demand, obviously, so we're happy to advocate with an academic institution. If we come to an academic institution and they've got an opportunity to offer, they're certainly going to not turn us away. We have great relationships with about 30 public academic institutions. But these are synchronous. The online with post-secondary institutions are synchronous in that you come to a virtual environment. So I know it's not quite the same as an in-person, but you still do get that interplay with an instructor and students and classmates. And that helps when you're doing some of that group work. It is a worthwhile investment. These courses are more expensive because there is a lot more involved in these courses. So online through NPI, the course registration fee is $749. If you do it through a public university or college, our fee is $450, and then the college or university will charge a fee. So often that does exceed the $749, but again, keep in mind that that's the difference between an asynchronous experience and a synchronous experience. And then this just gives you some salary data, PCP versus PLP. So again, when you look at just what would commonly be a payroll administrator coordinator role versus a payroll manager supervisor role, you can see that there's a significant low end to high end differentiation. So again, we're seeing payroll managers, supervisors that are making or can make upwards of $120,000 annually. So when you look at the difference, the potential difference that'll provide over a decade, it's very considerable. So, and then the resource for this was Robert Half. They do a salary guide. We just sent an email out to our members today from another recruiting organization that has just released salary guide information. So I'd recommend you look in your emails from today if you want to, explore other information regarding salary information. And this one does look at, administrators, analysts. I think it goes into a few more roles, managers, directors, that sort of thing. So you might want to consult that as well. I know that we're often asked about salary data because people utilize this information to sort of advocate for themselves with regard to what they might be paid, or when they're out looking for roles, what they can expect to attract when they go to do that. So again, we've addressed some of these questions. I'm going to get into a couple of testimonials and then we'll open the floor up in the last kind of fleeting moments that we've got in the session. But can I start the PLP without my PCP designation? And obviously I've already indicated that the PCP is a requirement. How do past students rate the course? I think, the one comment that we commonly see, Chris, and you can corroborate this, is that, students do say there is a lot more of a time investment in taking this course. There's no question, but at the end of the day, they do say the course has been very valuable for them in their career.
Absolutely.
So again, here's a couple of actual PLPs. Oscar said he's very thankful for the day that he decided to start his National Payroll Institute certification. I know Oscar, he actually was a new Canadian and came to Canada and went through the full designation programs from PCP right through to PLP. Obviously, at the time, it was the former payroll compliance practitioner designation and certified payroll manager designation. But he said he found that was a real differentiator for him in his career in Canada. And then here's Yan, who said she was promoted to a senior payroll specialist position shortly after she became certified and was later promoted to a payroll manager position. She's proud to say that she made the right decision to become a payroll compliance professional and obviously payroll leadership professional as well. So Chris, I know we don't have a whole lot of time left, but let's see what we can do to answer any kind of outstanding questions.
Absolutely. Okay. So when are you anticipating the change with the PLP designation? People are a little concerned. They don't want to take too many courses and then have things suddenly change on them. So should they continue taking, for example, the compensation benefits management course if it's starting in September?
I would suggest yes, because I don't think there's going to be any change to the PLP before 2026, quite honestly. So, again, we've just received some important consulting reports from the University of Toronto. Change doesn't happen instantaneously. And as I said, we're going to put a very robust transition plan in place because obviously we're always going to have students that are going to have, we're not going to say, okay, we're going to stop taking registrations for courses or suggest that you stop doing transfer of credit courses midstream. We want to make sure that we give people the opportunity to continue to get that designation because there's a lot of demand for it. What we have right now is incredibly relevant. But I think our goal is to make sure that we're making it as relevant as we can. So we'll put a very robust transition plan in place. So I don't recommend anybody suspend what they're doing. As I say, what they might want to do is consider the order in which they take certain courses. As I say, managerial accounting is going to be a requirement. So that one I would recommend taking. The intro to payroll management and applied payroll management, those are always going to be valuable. And what I anticipate is going to happen is we're going to move from 2 National Payroll Institute courses to 3. So you might be better to take the 2 now if you can. Again, it's a toss-up because obviously we're not going to continue to necessarily have 3 transfer credits. So there's obviously going to be a similar course load that's going to be required. It's just going to be where we're going to put the emphasis on and where we're going to redevelop our curriculum.
Wonderful. Okay. Quick question about Verifier.
Yes.
My manager is on vacation and I'm unable to get the work application signed. Is it possible to send the application with employer information and contact information? I'll take that one. No. we really do want the verifier to be signing off on it. And that's not something we won't go back and ask and follow up with your supervisor. That is something that you are expected to be responsible for. Okay, it looks like we're out of time. Thank you so much for all the questions. We will follow up on any questions that we didn't get to, and we'll send you an email. The team, the professional accreditation and credentialing team, will follow up and answer as many of your questions as we possibly can. Stephen, you want to close us out?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So again, we really appreciate everybody's active participation, forwarding the questions, being interested in advancing your career, taking that next step. Sometimes it's, you just sometimes need that gentle nudge to say, yes, I can do this. And we do have confidence that you can do it. For additional questions, as Chris said, we'll try to get to those ones we didn't get to today. Some of them have hopefully subsequently been answered through the presentation, but you can always find us at payroll.ca. You can always reach Chris's very dynamic and amazing team at certification@payroll.ca. You can call us at our 1-800 number. The dedicated certification or professional accreditation team can be found at extension 272. And also find us on social media. So again, we appreciate the role that you have played in continuing to raise the profile of payroll. We've come a long way. I've been at this organization for almost 3 decades, and I'm most proud of the fact that we have really continued to raise the bar of payroll and the profession, and that can only be done through the likes of all of you. So thank you very much, and all the best in your continued studies and in your continued advancement within your payroll career.
Thank you
Have a
so
great
much.
afternoon, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.